Hello, I'm Frank Hanaway. Welcome to Big Journey, Small Steps. Well, I promised that today I would talk a little bit about how we got the Alzheimer's diagnosis for my mom. And when I look back, there have been signs and warning signs for about the past 10 years. My mother, who was always exceptionally bright, about 10 years ago, began to have memory problems that impaired her ability. She was going to get a job with this major insurance company, and she just couldn't handle it. She'd never had anything that she couldn't handle before, but she couldn't remember the things she was supposed to remember. She just couldn't put it all together. And I just said at the time, well, it's not a good match. And things began, but my mother then went to a neurologist who said she was just fine. She also, around that time, had some minor strokes, at least one. And she didn't tell anybody because she told me that several weeks after the fact, that she had blacked out and she woke up on the floor with her pants wet. And I said, "Mother, you've had a stroke." And she said, "Really? Do you think so?" I was like, "Oh, yeah." And so she went to the doctor and they did some tests. Sure enough, she had a stroke. But they were still saying her memory was fine. She didn't have Alzheimer's. My brother became increasingly ill, and that was enormously stressful for my mother. So it was hard to make, nobody would behave normally under these circumstances. And then when my father died, and then shortly, within a few months, my brother died thereafter, everybody kept saying, "How is your mother?" And my standard answer was, "Ask me in a year or two." And a couple of years went by and nothing got better. I'm trying to think why I took her. Oh, I know. She had a day I came home from work and she had totally lost her memory for a whole day. That's so interesting because that's at least 3 years ago and that hasn't recurred. But she couldn't remember what she was supposed to eat. She came home, she had remembered that I was at work and she didn't get in touch with me because she didn't want to bother me. So we took her to a neurologist then and he said, "Oh no, she's fine. She doesn't have Alzheimer's. She didn't have another stroke, blah, blah, blah." Well, some friends of my mother's were concerned about her behavior and some different things, and they came to me, and I was really feeling the pressure. I was trying to keep my job going and trying to take care of Mom too, and we were having problems with the telephone because people would call up and try to scam my mother, and she just believed whatever they would say. And at a certain point, I just said, "I've got to retire. I can't worry about her safety all day and not be able to take care of her." And these friends came to me and said they were concerned. Did I notice that her memory was bad? I remember when I heard that, I thought, yeah, like 6 or 7 years ago, we noticed that. She noticed it too. So anyway, we took her to this neurological center and they ran some tests on her, which right away showed that her memory was quite a bit impaired. We ran a CAT scan on her brain and it showed extensive atrophy, and that was the basis for the Alzheimer's diagnosis. Now, so this was 6 years or 5 years at least of actively pursuing, trying to figure out what was wrong, knowing something was wrong. And everybody would say, "Oh, it's just some dementia." And her behavior was so strange sometimes, but it wasn't the typical things you hear, like she wasn't aggressive or distrustful or paranoid. She didn't have fits of anger or anything like that. She was pretty much holding it together, still played the piano, did all these things. But at that same time, I think up until then, she had been taking care of all the finances. I got to look at the finances and realize that we needed to work out a way I could take over. And I have to say, it's been really easy. All of those things that you fret over and think that'll be really hard, Mom just knew that had to be done. The hard thing was the losing her driver's license. So I'll talk about that a different day. But I will tell you one thing. Once you get the Alzheimer's diagnosis, it helps your caretaker in a way. It helps the caretaker, because then all these things that didn't make sense make sense. But what it also does is people tend to minimize you as soon as they hear that. And they did that to her at her doctor's office. It was like they stopped talking to her very much, started talking to me. Yeah. So if you think there's something wrong, pursue it. Pursue it. Because I will say this, we put my mother on some of the medications and did some of the holistic things, added more vegetables to her diet and green tea and things like that. And quite honestly, over the past year and a half, we haven't lost a lot of ground. We've lost some vocabulary and things like that, but she's still quite capable. She still takes her own showers and baths and, you know, gets ready for performances, and we go do them. Anyway, I thought I would share that with you because it's still perplexing to me. But that's the way it was. Thanks for sharing time with me today. I really appreciate it. And from the bottom of my heart, I'd like to wish you peace and joy.